One, and welcome everybody to the 70th episode of the Hashtag Invest This podcast. I am your host, Scott Bauer. Today we got Greg Helbeck with us. He's out of San Diego. A little bit about Greg. He's a young real estate investing entrepreneur who resides currently in San Diego, California. He focuses in two markets, New York and Dallas. He's actively doing wholesale, retail, and some light rehabs in his markets. Before real estate investing, he pursued a career in hockey and had the ambition to try and make the NHL. After that venture failed, he had to face the new reality of not being an NHL hockey player. But he looked deep inside himself and discovered the power of books and personal development to improve his situation. Within 3 years, Greg went from broke living in his parents' basement to becoming a successful real estate investor who operates 100% virtual. And he has ambitions to get involved in commercial real estate investing and become a beacon of positivity for people his age to inspire them to go out and achieve the success that they want. So that's a pretty good run up, man. I like it. I want to give the listeners a little bit more about your background.
I've never heard someone read my bio before. I was sitting there like, oh, I hope I spelt that right. So happy to be on, man. 70th episode. Glad we connected. It's funny. You were one of the people who told me to start a podcast, and that was like on my to-do list, and I started one because of you. So thanks, man. Yeah, the bio was pretty long. So I'm a real estate entrepreneur. I've been kind of doing this for like 4 years now. So I'm not a 10-year vet with like 1,000 deals under my belt yet. So got a lot to learn for sure. Kind of started out in the business after, a hockey career failed. I got relatively far, but not as far as I obviously needed to go. So I ended up kind of back at my parents' house, in college, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I didn't know what I wanted to do. I never really thought about being an entrepreneur, except I always liked kind of the freedom and the autonomy and the ability to kind of do what I want. So I stumbled into a seminar. This is almost 4 years ago. It's crazy. And the guy was talking about wholesaling property and, no money down, double closings. And I remember I was in the seminar and I'm like, oh my God, like this sounds like something I can do, and like, I think that people on stage are very good at selling. So I joined their training. It was like $2,000 or something. It was like basically all the money I had. And, I kind of got started. I started putting out bandit signs, getting leads, taking massive action, These are
all key words that I know all about.
Yeah, right.
The real stuff.
Massive action. And I think it took me like 9 months and I stumbled upon a deal. I made like $1,000 and then like a month later I'd made like 5K, and this is all wholesaling back in New York. And after I did probably like, 8 deals, I started to realize like, okay, I can actually probably do this consistently now. And then I kind of created an LLC. So that's a big thing for new investors. Like I did deals and then got the LLC, and still don't have business cards to this day. Like I'm focused on doing deals, and then the rest of the stuff we'll figure it out, kind of down the line. So anyway, fast forward. Started doing deals in New York, and then, New York's a great market, but the attorneys up there were slowing a lot of things down. So like a year and a half ago, I started to go into another market, Dallas, Texas. So beginning of 2018, I jumped in there, and recently, we've still been buying probably 2 to 3 a month down in Dallas. Slowed down a little bit because we've been buying more up in New York, but I kind of went into the whole virtual investing game. And I can certainly talk about that in detail today if you'd like. And, here I am now doing, anywhere from like, 3 to 6 properties a month. Sometimes we'll have a bad month with 3 deals. Last month we got 6 deals. So not high volume, but I try to really maximize my profits. And I don't just wholesale anymore. I take down properties and do the rehab if my cash flow allows for it and if the property allows for it. So that's kind of a little background on me.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate you sharing all that. There's a lot of key points that you've already said. First and foremost, doing deals and not going out there. For new investors out there, everybody thinks that you have to have a website, you have to have a business card, you have to have an LLC, you have to have all these ducks in a row before you can go start doing deals, and that is just not the case. So, you're living proof. I am living proof. Matter of fact, I have the very first check and
I love it
ever made right here on my desk because I want a reminder that, anybody can do it.
That's amazing. Tell me that dollar is the earnest money check. Tell me that's your earnest money.
That, that's just the first dollar. I actually pulled a dollar out of my pocket. Yeah. It was the first dollar of profit
I love that.
as a company, which was
that's amazing.
Wow. This stuff works, right? But
that's amazing.
Going back to what, you've already said here, doing deals is so important and focusing on doing that instead of getting all the back end stuff done. Cause you don't have to do that. Right.
Yeah. it's completely unnecessary in the beginning. Like once you have some traction, you want to be like somewhat organized and professional. I still don't have business cards. I give people my cell phone number. They're like, what the hell? So I should probably do that. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at today. So like I said, it's been a great journey so far, and I'm looking forward to continuing the growth.
Well, so let's go a couple of different ways. I do want to talk about your virtual wholesaling because I think it's such a prevalent thing out there today. I don't do any virtual wholesaling myself. I just don't. I'm in, one of the, if not the hottest markets in the country, and we're still doing great. Yeah. And it might be beneficial to go to other markets. I just haven't done that. So I want to pick your brain about that. But the other thing I want to pick your brain about is, your experience with John Martinez and what that training has done to help you. Talking about never split the difference and maybe what that intertwines with John's training and, for the listeners out there, what that has helped you to do. And then also, what are some of the problems and issues that you've run into up to this point?
Yeah. Many, many problems, and there'll always be problems, right? You just got to pick your problems. So where do you want to start with the problems? You want to start with the sales stuff, the virtual stuff, however you want to take this. I'd be happy to kind of steer the ship any way you'd like me to.
Well, let's just start out. This is 4 years ago that you really got started. So walk us through. I know you kind of gave us a rundown for it already, but really, where did you start to get traction? You started off, how are you marketing? Where are you marketing? All of that, right?
Yeah. So I realized at the time I didn't realize it, but now I realize like this whole business just comes down to at least in residential, like it all comes down to just generating off-market leads to then make offers. It's straight up a numbers game. Like track your numbers, you'll do deals every month. And then anyway, so I had no money to start. So I had to, I spent a lot of time doing, lead gen activities. So I would put out bandit signs. I'd go on Craigslist. And that was really what I did to get started. So once I made some money off bandit signs, which were cheap, I would go out. The key with the bandit signs, I would go out every single Friday when all my friends were partying. I was putting out signs and I didn't know if it would work. And then I did a couple deals and it would work. And then I started to build momentum. So once I had a little bit of capital from the successful deals off the signs, I started doing direct mail, but I really did not have the right expectations going into direct mail. So I actually almost ran out of money mailing. And then I realized, so this is kind of all over the place, but I started mailing. I did a really good deal off of mail. And then I put most of that money back into marketing. But the way New York was working with how long the sales cycle was, because the attorneys slow the whole deal down. So like I was going 60, 90 days without any revenue. And it was like, oh my God, I'm going to freak out.
You were crushing.
It was scary. Yeah. So I almost ran out of money. And then I went back to bandit signs, generated some more money. And then I said to myself, okay, so, bandit signs are successful. Direct mail can be successful if you really know the numbers and you understand, how to convert those leads, what lists to mail. That's a whole another thing. But I said, I need to find a way. And my cost per deal was going way up with direct mail. And I didn't have a lot of cash flow to support that. And I only had one exit strategy, which was to wholesale. So like I couldn't maximize my net profits. So I said, I need to find a way to get cheaper properties or acquire deals at a lower cost. And I need to be able to expand my net profit. So I actually stumbled upon the whole skip tracing strategy, and like basically going after vacant houses and just calling the owners. And Larry Higgins, one of my really good friends, kind of taught me exactly how to do that. And I started doing it actually in another market, which was Dallas. So I just started literally finding vacant properties, finding distress situations, tax delinquent vacancies, all those types of typical distress, inherited properties. And I was just calling over the phone, and I really didn't know what to expect. And I started popping out deals after probably like a month of doing that. I popped like an $18,000 deal or $30,000 deal. And then we just caught some momentum, and I started to develop a system around this. So I was acquiring deals, and I'm still doing it now. We're getting deals really, really cheap because we're spending more time, whether it's me or a VA, we're spending more time to get the deal. And then once we have the deal, right, we're trying to maximize our profits by either wholesaling it or closing on it. And now my cost per deal went way down, and then my net profit went way up. And then, on top of that, I was doing it virtually, and I never saw the house, never met the seller, and got a wire in my bank account. And I was like, holy crap, this is crazy. And then I didn't believe it at first. And then I did 10 of them, and I was like, all right, this actually works.
This is real.
And it's another now tool in the tool belt, because I still buy a lot of stuff in New York, but that whole virtual model is like a tool in the tool belt that I can pull out whenever I want now within reason.
So, I mean, that's crazy if you think about it. You're in San Diego, California. You're buying deals literally across the country and the other side of the country.
Yeah.
Buying deals virtually, right? And
you're
not ever seeing the house. You're not ever doing anything. You're just a marketing machine.
Yeah.
people in place, the boots on the ground, and being able to monetize that. What a beautiful thing, right?
It's cool. It's cool. Yeah. And I do, disclaimer, I do go to New York quite a bit when we are rehabbing because I have a lot of my personal money in those properties. So I will go there like every 6 to 8 weeks, but I am from there. So like my family's there, my friends are there. So it's like a little vacation. So, but I can do it all virtually if I wanted to, for sure.
And that's beautiful. And the way that you're able to do that successfully, where you're able to generate leads, close deals on different markets, is because you're measuring your KPIs. That is so.
That's the only reason.
I mean, absolutely. Yeah. That's the way that you figure out how your business is running. So I think that's another key point for all the listeners out there is if you're not tracking your numbers, if you're not looking at that stuff, you're doing something wrong. You're going to go out of business real quick.
You're in so much trouble. And that's the thing. And it's funny, Scott, once I started tracking just even the offers I would make, I started doing deals. It was like magic almost. Like because I would see we had a bad week. Well, how many leads came in? Well, 2. Well, you got 2 leads. How are you supposed to buy 2 houses a month if you got 2 leads in 1 week? So then I just and then when you track your numbers, you can ask yourself better questions. How do I get more leads? Write down 20 ideas on how you get more leads. You're solving that problem. So it's like when you track your numbers, like Mark Evans always says, like data, not drama. Like if you have data to like look at, you can then say, okay, why is this like that? And then how do I fix that? But if you're not tracking your numbers, like a lot of new investors come up to me like, oh, I haven't done a deal. Well, how many offers did you make? None. There you go. It's like, yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, it's very easy to get away from doing that though. Most people out there don't know that that's what they should be doing when that is the number one thing that you should be doing is looking at your numbers, period. I mean, flat out, if you don't know your numbers, then you don't know your business, right?
Yeah, totally. Couldn't agree more.
I mean, I'm considering myself now a seasoned investor. I've been doing this for quite a while. We bought a ton of houses, but going back and looking at the numbers on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, even daily can be challenging, right?
It is.
And I was just talking with Heather, my assistant over here, about how we need to do that more consistently because, things can slip through the cracks and you just don't even know it if you don't look at your numbers.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that because I have a weekly schedule. It's an appointment with myself every Sunday because I don't have a big team at all. Right. And like
stay lean, brother. Stay lean.
Yeah, I have like small, and like I said, there's no right or wrong thing, but for me right now with where I'm at, I just don't want to take on that overhead right now. Yep. So I have an appointment with myself every single Sunday. I look at my numbers. I ask the questions. I look at the good things that happen, the bad things that happen. I reflect on all that stuff. And then I know going forward, okay, am I in line with my KPIs? Am I not in line? And it just gives me a lot of clarity as I, come off on a Monday morning. Okay, what do we need to address? What do we need to track? And even if you're like a lean operation like me, like you got to treat it like a big company because at the end of the day, if you want to grow and scale, you don't track your numbers and you haven't established that habit, you're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yep. It's very true. Well, let's kind of shift then. How are you able to beef up your numbers? You talked about monetizing and trying to maximize all of the deals that you have. What has been important for you? Yeah. What can you tell the listeners that they need to be out there doing so that they can start crushing themselves?
I love it. I can't wait to talk about this.
Yes.
So when I first started, a major mistake that I made, and there's a great quote, it's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness. I did not create that. I've heard it a million times, so I'm just going to regurgitate it. I only looked at myself as a wholesaler. My identity was Greg Helbeck, the wholesaler. Okay. The amount of money I probably left on the table from that silly identity in the beginning is unbelievable. But at the end of the day, hindsight's 20/20 in the rearview mirror. So then after I would wholesale some of these houses and I would make a decent profit, I would follow these deals and see how much money these buyers were making. And I was like, oh my God, like this is insane. And at the time I didn't have enough capital to really go in. I could have raised the money, but I didn't think about that. So I started to realize, like, if I'm going to do all this work to get these deals at good prices, I need to try to find a way, especially with me being a smaller operation, not doing high volume. How do I maximize my net profit? Because at the end of the day, that's a big deal, especially when you're small. So I said, well, what if I start closing on some of these deals? And, I bring on partners if I want, how do I limit my risk too? I don't want to have all my money on the street in these properties. So then I'm scared to pay the rent. You know what I mean? Yeah. So let me start closing on some of these deals. I'm going to do it strategically and I'm going to split test, what are the net profits going to be if I close versus what I would wholesale. So we did a deal in Dallas. We could have wholesaled it for probably 15 or 20 grand. We took the deal down, closed it, sold it in one day. We made $50,000. So I was like, oh my God, I would have doubled that profit. So just looking at the deal and seeing what is the true upside, right? And looking at it as an investor, not just a wholesaler, right? Like, why is it a good wholesale deal? Why is it a good rehab deal? Why is it a good wholesale deal? I'll give you one more example on a deal I'm actually in the middle of right now. Just got an offer accepted on it. There is a property for sale in Nanuet, New York, where I'm from originally, like that area. And smoking deal. The guy inherited the property, wanted to sell it. I go back to New York to literally meet this guy. I fly back to New York, meet this guy. He sells me the property for $185. And I said, you know what? I could probably wholesale this thing for $260 right now, but I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to do my homework and I'm going to see what the upside is here. So before I closed, I got an appraisal on the property and I got a scope of work done and I got an inspection. Turns out that property appraised as is for $320. The ARV was $440. So I'm like, if I'm going to wholesale this, I'm going to leave a ton of money on the table. So I did a light rehab, put 15 grand into it. I have an accepted offer. I'm signing the contracts on that for $350. I bought it for $185. I'm in the deal for $200. So it's like slowing it down to like slow down to speed up. Because if I didn't look at it, if I looked at that deal as a wholesaler, I would have left 80 grand on the table. So that now I'm very slow to look at deals and I really want to look at every deal. How do I make the most profit on this thing? And what's the risk? And that's what I do on every property now.
And that's huge, man. I appreciate you bringing that up because I think you should look at every deal as what's the wholesale, what's the fix and flip, what's the keep, or I'm sorry, what's the hotel, what's the keep?
What's the keep? Exactly. You're an investor, you know.
Are you buying stuff yourself on a rental portfolio at this point or not yet?
Not yet. There's one we're in the middle of right now that it looks like if we don't wholesale it, we're going to take it on with hard money with the tenants in place till October. And then we're probably going to just get, you know, let the lease go and then let the rent roll and then we'll just rehab it. So right now I really haven't been focused on rentals at all. It's completely my fault. I should be. And the way that I want to get involved in rentals, at least on the single family side, is if I can do the BRRRR strategy where I don't have any of my capital in the deal. Cause I don't want to put 20% down and it'll take like a long time to have that, you know, be successful. If I can go in, rehab it, force appreciation, get my capital out and then cycle that, I could go to 2, 3, 4 rentals a month. And then, you know, in 2 or 3 years, I could have a multi-million-dollar portfolio instead of like saving 20%, buying it at like 90%. I just don't think that, for me at least, is the way I want to get into rentals unless I can get a discount, maximize the equity, and then pull my capital out and just scale that thing up from there.
Dude, I tell you what, because we're in the wholesale game, right? Marketing out there for properties, you get the first look at all the good deals.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So, I mean, what I always do is if there's enough spread in there, if I can buy a property that needs very little rehab, that I can basically, I mean, I'm buying it at a 30% discount. So 20% down is already covered, right?
Yeah.
Close on it. As long as you have private money that you took down or a loan, you know, if you're having hard money or whatever, as long as you have a loan, you can refi the next day for a rate and term refi. So dude, just buy a property, take it down, whether it has a renter in it or not, go to a bank, refi out of it. You don't have any of your own cash in it and you're building wealth.
Wealth, that's the key. Yeah. There's a big difference.
And I mean, picking up, I don't know, small multifamilies or multifamilies as well. You know, you start talking to investors, get some private capital coming in. All this stuff is beautiful, man. I love this game. And it just has given me a life that I never would have thought that I would have at this point.
Amazing. Same here, brother. It's amazing. It is a truly life-changing business.
So what's next for you? I mean, how do you see yourself 5 years from now? What do you think you're going to be doing? You still going to be in San Diego?
Yeah. No, it's cool. So I moved out to San Diego, just, I think for the whole, I guess, lifestyle thing, you know, 24, living in Southern Cal, you know, the quote unquote dream life or whatever. And it, you know, it's cool. I really like it out here. I think, you know, having the opportunity to live out here and do business remotely, I'm not opposed to doing deals out here, you know, if the numbers make sense. Really with business, I want to make sure that, you know, I'm just consistently growing, whether that's deciding to do more volume, right? Whether that's deciding to get into bigger deals, maybe more, not just traditional residential deals, maybe going after more like, there's a really good book, Scott, I recommend you read it. It's called Confessions of a Real Estate Entrepreneur by Jim Randall. Really opened my mind up to like other types of deals. So getting into more advanced deals, like, you know, maybe some commercial stuff, you know, adding value in commercial, you know, buying and selling bigger properties. And I want to get more into like, just growing consistently with my values. So whether that's doing more residential deals or whether that's getting more into the commercial properties, whether that's, you know, apartment buildings. But the thing is, I always want to be buying value add property. I don't want to be buying stuff and getting this like an 8% return. You know, I want to be buying something that I can force appreciation, just like that rehab I told you about, boost the value up. And then whatever I want to do, I always want to be buying value add properties. I think in the next 5 years, it's going to be just scaling up and doing bigger types of deals. So instead of making $100,000 profit, you can make $1 million profit, and learning those skills and becoming the person I need to become to be able to do that on a consistent basis. So those are kind of my goals in the 5-year lane. I think in this lane right now, it's just keeping my company successful and then just kind of growing it in alignment with what my values. Because I thought a couple months ago I wanted to do more like volume and like just crank out more deals. And I really sat down and I thought about that, and it didn't really align with what I wanted to do. And I decided to just not do that for now, focus on the net profit, and just kind of keep doing what I'm doing now, and then always looking at other opportunities now. Like we made a couple bids on some commercial properties back in New York, and kind of trying that out and seeing how we like it. So it's all about growth for me, man, at the end of the day.
Dude, that's huge. And I think that's really, really important for a lot of people to think about is the growth mindset. Have you heard of a book called The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan?
Nope, but I'm going to write it down right now.
Okay, so this book you can read. I know you're an avid reader. You could read this in a couple of hours. It took me a couple hours to read it. It's very, very short, but it will totally reframe how you feel about the success that you've had and where you're going. Because as entrepreneurs, all of us out there are always trying to chase that dream that's way far out there, just like the horizon, right?
Yeah, I get that all the time.
If you try to chase the horizon, you will never get there because it always, no matter how far you go, it's always out there, right? And so if you try to get there, if you try to chase something you can never achieve, you'll always be unhappy. But if you instead set a goal, try to reach that goal, even if you don't reach that goal, you can look back and say, okay, this is what I did wrong. The key is to look back, right? You see your success by looking back on your success to see the steps you've taken to get there. That's how you live a happy life, man. Anyways,
that, man. You know what? I want to just kind of hit on that real quick because I want to tell a true story to the listeners here. And it literally screwed. I've shared this on podcasts before. It screwed with my head big time. So I had this crazy goal. So last year I was in college. I graduated college last year. So I couldn't move to California until I got out of college because I had to physically go to the school. And I was like, I tried to do the whole remote thing. It didn't work too well. So I had a huge goal to move to San Diego. I had the numbers figured out. I had the virtual business. I got to be virtual. I got to have a certain number in the bank, blah, blah, blah. So I do it. I moved to San Diego, and I didn't think I could do it when I set the goal. I wrote the goal down like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. Like I couldn't do it at the time logistically. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is crazy. If I move to San Diego, holy crap. So I end up doing it. And I got to San Diego, and it was like, it ties into that book. I got out here and I had no more really goals, right? I'm like, shoot, I got the virtual business. I'm in San Diego. It's sunny every day. I don't know anyone. What the hell? And I was so unmotivated, dude. It was crazy. Like for like 2 weeks, I would do nothing. I'd get up, I'd go to the beach, and I was just like, well, now what? Like, now what am I going to do? And if I set another goal, I'm going to feel like this again. And I had to do a lot of soul searching, and I had to really figure out what the hell was wrong with me. I made a lot of phone calls to people, and I told them, and I was super vulnerable and transparent. And the problem with me was, like I said, I set these goals, and I had no other goals to look forward to. And I was always chasing something. And it really taught me a lot, man. So if your listeners have been there, number one, it's real. And number two, you just got to always have something you're going for that's truly meaningful to you. And my life was also out of balance because I was working like a dog to move to San Diego. So that didn't help either.
Well, I think you were looking for fulfillment, right? I mean, that's what it is. And maybe doing more deals is not always fulfilling. I kind of struggle with that too. I think everybody does.
Yeah.
Deals, they just come and they go. I mean, it's crazy. We create houses like they're commodity, like they're twos or something, right?
Yeah.
But you're chasing fulfillment, and you were trying to listen to yourself. I think that's really important for everybody to understand too. Listen to your gut. Listen to what listen to how you feel about things.
Yeah, man. And just slow down to speed up. And like I did in the real estate game, maximize your profits by really looking at the deal. Like, look at what you want. Like, why do you want to do 10 houses a month? Like, what's that going to do to you? Is that going to scratch an itch? Or are you just doing that because everyone on Facebook talks about that and their numbers are probably bunk anyway? Just really
Dude,
go deep.
Yeah, amen to that.
Yeah. Don't try to follow other people because that's just a terrible strategy. I've tried it. I still do it sometimes. But at the end of the day, what works for someone else might not work for you. You just got to stay true to yourself. That's why I'm such an advocate for self-help or, personal development, because it's so powerful.
Dude, that's huge, man. Well, I want to talk about two more things. One, the challenges you've had, some more challenges that you can give to the listeners and how they can overcome it. And then lastly, I want to talk about Pave the Way. I want to talk about your podcast and give you a shout out for that.
Thanks, man. So here's a big one. I'll give you a technical one just for a lot of listeners. They want some real estate advice here. Direct mail. So this is a big, massive mistake that everyone will learn here for free. When I first started doing direct mail, I had no experience, so that's inevitable. Like, you're going to make mistakes if you have no experience. It's like, if you want to get good at a sport, if you've never played it before, you're going to struggle, right? So direct mail is the same thing. And I spent tens of thousands of dollars in direct mail in New York, which is a tougher market to do it in because the attorneys in the sales cycle. Because you don't see there's this thing called the cash conversion cycle. And in New York, you don't see your money for a long time because the sales cycle is just so much longer, but then the profits are bigger. So I had no idea how to do direct mail. The first time I think I sent the campaign, I literally put the wrong phone number on the damn letter that I handwrote. I handwrote the envelopes, but I typed the letters, wrong phone number. It was insanity. So learn from that. And I had no tracking system, and I had no way to really kind of design a campaign, right? Because now I do my direct mail like 4 or 5 months in advance. It's all scheduled. It's going out. Don't have to even think about it. I didn't do that. I would wing it. I didn't let the direct mail like drip. So then like I'd get a consistent flow of leads every month. I used to just drop it. I'd get a truckload of phone calls for 2 days, and then the phones would go dry. Most sellers didn't want to do deals with me, and it was just a complete nightmare. And I had no tracking. The CRM was just a nightmare. So if you're going to do direct mail, so the lesson I learned was that was extremely painful and it was extremely expensive. And if you're going to start spending money in marketing, you need to find a way to measure that, within like a 90 to 120 day cycle, because a lot of the times it's going to take a little bit of time for you to see the return on the ad spend. But if you don't have a way to track that, you're going to go through what I went through, where you're going to feel like you're throwing money away. So you need to have a system to track your mail, right? It doesn't have to be crazy, but you need to have campaigns planned. You need to have scheduled mail going out, and you need to understand that unless you want to be like me in the beginning, you need to drip the mail to go out on a weekly basis instead of like once a month, because then you're going to have these huge swings with calls and activity, and then you're going to have these down swings, and then it's a complete nightmare. So direct mail cost me a lot of heartache. Almost took me out of business, to be honest with you. And that screwed with my head. Cause like I was like here, and then I went down here, and I was like, oh my God. And then I had a partner came on, and he didn't want to do the business. It was a complete nightmare. And then I started to realize like, okay, I need to track this. I need to get myself out of this mess. I need to get some cheaper deals by skip tracing. And then once I have more capital, I need to do this direct mail much more strategically. So now I track my direct mail very systematized and organized, and I look at everything on like track tagging and everything. So that was a painful learning lesson, especially for me, because at the time I didn't have a lot of traction, or really, I really still didn't have that much traction. So like that was impacting my personal life too. It wasn't like, oh, like you're spending money on marketing doesn't work. Like that was my source of income. So like if I wanted to like do stuff, I needed money from real estate, and that marketing unsuccess was costing me a lot of peace of mind. So that was really tough. And I learned a lot from that business kind of screw up. And now I'm much more strategic on how I market to sellers, especially when I'm spending more money in marketing with direct mail opposed to like skip tracing, which is cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you nailed it on the head, man. You gotta be consistent with your marketing. You gotta track it. I mean, that's in a nutshell what you gotta do. Doesn't matter whether you're doing direct mail, if you're doing online leads, if you're doing bandit signs, if you're just going to knock on doors. I don't care what it is. You gotta track it.
Yeah.
And you gotta measure it that way. Otherwise, you're not gonna have success.
Because it's gonna impact your personal life. Like that, like you said, like a challenge. I was pissed off all day because I had no money in the bank because my direct mail wasn't working. So you have to link like your marketing success is going to lead to your business success. And then your business success is going to lead to you feeling better about yourself because you can set and achieve goals.
Amen, bro.
So you have to like link it deep to like the root a lot of times. That's something I try to do now, is I try to always get to the root cause of things. Like, why am I upset right now? And then it's like usually like 3 or 4 layers under that surface layer statement you make,
Dude, it's huge, man. And I think that's a big tip for everybody out there listening. That's been it seems like we talked about that a lot on this call today. But it's all about tracking, and it's all about, tracking. Track.
That's right.
That's it. So what about Pave the Way? Happy that you got out there and took action and made a podcast. And, what are you doing with it? It's called the Pave the Way podcast for all the listeners.
Pave the Way podcast. Yep.
We will make sure to add a link into this show notes for all the listeners to go and check you out.
Sure, man.
And give me a little info about it. What is it? How's it going? How long you been going?
Yeah. So shameless plug. I was with Mr. Scott Bauer a couple months ago in Coronado, and I think we were walking somewhere, and he is like, "Yeah, you should start a podcast, man." And I was like, "That's a pretty good idea." But like I think everyone here has good ideas. I'm like, yeah, well, maybe one day. Like Brian Tracy always says, people take the vacation to Someday Island. So that was like a palm tree on Someday Island. And then I kept hearing it over and over again. and I was reading it in books, thought leadership. So I decided to start a podcast, Pave the Way podcast. I really didn't know what I was doing. Still don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of winging it day by day, but that's like fun. And I started the show. I wanted to make it not only real estate related. So it's real estate, business, personal development. So far it's been an interview style show. I've been putting 2 shows a week out, and I will do that consistently. So I bring on a lot of heavy hitting real estate investors on the show. We talk about, their success, their lessons. There are a lot of guys I like to bring on. I like them to have very interesting stories. How, a lot of them were in businesses before they got into real estate, and they learned a lot of good lessons. So interview style show. We got real estate investors on there. I got best-selling authors on there. I got Jay Pappison from the One Thing coming on in a couple weeks. I got some other relatively big authors scheduled to come on. Chris Voss's son's been on the show. So I try to get not only real estate, we got some authors, and then business people, personal development people. So I want to make it. I'm making it more of a show where because some people maybe they see it's a real estate show. Oh, I'm not in real estate. I'm not going to get value from it. So I tried to make it real estate, business, personal development. So someone who maybe doesn't want to be a real estate investor, they can still get value from my show. And then maybe that will get them into real estate, and you never know. So I try to make it open to like real estate, business, personal development, and just consistently put out content and let the content grow the show by word of mouth. And it's been really interesting, I think, so far, just kind of connecting with people and learning how to be a better communicator myself, how to interview, how to take control of the interview, how to stay on track. It's been interesting. So thank you for the advice, Scott, because now I'm in podcast land and it's been fun.
I'm happy to give it to you, man. I'm glad that you took action. I think that shows a lot about your character and who you are as a person, as an entrepreneur, et cetera. Those people that do that are the ones that succeed. It's, a lot of proof out there. And I appreciate you, sharing your whole story today on the show, man. Like, I think that there's a lot of nuggets that people can pull out of it that, could really make a big impact on not only your life and your business. Now, Invest This is kind of along the same. I mean, we do all real estate basically in this show, but I want it to also be a lot of personal development as well, because you take the information, you invest it in your life, in your business, you keep moving forward. That's what it's all about, right?
That's it.
Gotten a lot of really good feedback, a lot of good reviews from people, and so really like that. But I'm glad that you've been able to take action. For sake of time, are you ready for a lightning round?
I'm looking forward to it, man. I've been pumped since I saw it on the itinerary.
Sounds good, man. Well, let's do it. Yeah. What is your hashtag Invest This tip that you can give our listeners to keep them moving forward?
Oh, that's a good question. Reflect on your activities. Reflect on your activities, because there's a big difference between being busy and being productive. And a major mistake I learned in the beginning was I was spinning my wheels and I had no productivity whatsoever. So if you're going to take action, massive action, like they all say, which is true, you got to reflect on what you're doing to see what is working, what is not working. And you need to discipline yourself to do that on at least a weekly basis. I go on annual reflections. I'll literally get a hotel room for 24 hours, lock myself at a resort, and I will write in my journal and reflect on my entire year. And I'm telling you, those little small things, those little small disciplines changed my life. So reflect.
Dude, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. Massive. And that's been, obviously, we've talked about that a lot. Reflect back, look back, measure backwards. Don't measure forward, always measure backwards. So all the listeners, I think that's a great tip. We're both avid readers, right? What's your favorite book that you've read that's had a massive impact on your life?
Oh, man, this is a tough question. So here's one. It's an audio book. I don't think it's a physical book, but it's called The Art of Exceptional Living by Jim Rohn. I can basically state the book verbatim, but I won't do it because it would take 4 hours. But The Art of Exceptional Living by Jim Rohn. It's on Audible. It's probably the best personal development material you'll get your hands on. And it's most of the guys who are in the industry now, they've learned from Jim. So my advice is to listen to that over and over and over again, because if you apply what he's saying in that program, my goodness, it is just game-changing stuff. It's all about you and becoming the person you need to become to achieve whatever goals you want to achieve. So The Art of Exceptional Living by Jim Rohn.
I was just looking right there. Yeah, man, Jim Rohn's phenomenal, right? If you want to talk about personal development, that's
my God, it's the best. Yeah. Oh, that book is gold.
For sure. Who has given you the best advice out there? If you have a mentor, a coach, a family member, parent, whoever it might be, who's given you the best advice, and what has that been?
Yeah. That's a good one. I think I've had a lot of guys who've helped me, like in the real estate business for sure, and the sales and business, all that stuff. I think the real advice is my I'd say it's my parents, and it's not really direct advice. Like, hey, Greg, like they just kind of always let me kind of try things out, and kind of do my own thing, when I was younger, like within reason, not like crazy stuff. But they just kind of always said, like, do what you want to do and don't worry about what others think about you. So it's kind of like wishy-washy there, but like that advice is very good for me because that allowed me, like, especially when I started in the entrepreneur game, to like not really care about what people thought about me, because everyone thinks you're crazy when you try to start a business when you're in college. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, next thing you know, you're like moving to California. You're like, oh yeah, I guess I'm crazy. So probably my parents just telling me to like, I always do what you want to do and don't worry about what others think about you. And they've always like believed in me so far. So it's been cool to like kind of show them something as the business has grown, like, hey, this is possible, blah, blah, blah. So probably that, I'd say.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Yeah. And I think that's a massive tip for the listeners, or massive advice for the listeners, because misery loves company, right? So
Yeah.
Always, people always want to put you down and say that you're not going to be able to do it. But I guarantee all the listeners out there who are listening to this podcast are people that are doers, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so those people, everybody out there has the ability to go out and do whatever it is that they want to do. Don't let haters hate on you.
It's
right?
so true. Like, how do you expect to fly with the eagles if you're sitting with all the turkeys,
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. And like, that's easier said than done. But what happened, this is a little rant here, but I love this stuff so much, as you can tell. Like, I remember I went to this seminar and they were like, oh my God, you got to fire all your friends. Da, da, da. And like, I thought literally I was going to go home and like, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. But it's not like that. Like, you're going to like start to have different values and belief systems. And then you're just going to naturally drift away if it's not a fit. Like, it's not like you're getting divorced and they're like, send the alimony check here. It's like, no, it's like a natural kind of like just separation, and there's no hard feelings. And that's just what happens when you choose to grow. Other people might not want to grow, and it is what it is. You can't really fight that. You got to do what you got to do, and let the rest take care of itself.
Dude, that's huge, man. And you couldn't have said it any better than that, because I've been in the same situation before where, you hear that same message, you got to fire all your friends. You're the product of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Yeah. Jim Rohn.
Yeah, right. And then you look around, you're like, well, shoot.
I'm hanging out with all the turkeys. What do I do?
Yeah, but eventually, like you said, you go your own route. You don't worry about what other people think about you. You learn, you grow yourself, and eventually it'll just separate out. That's just what will happen. So thank you for sharing that, man. How do you give back?
Yeah. So here's something I do. And I like to keep this kind of on the DL, because like, I don't want it to be like, oh, you're a good guy. Like, I want it, because I like to personally do this. So I'll just share it on the podcast because I hope other people do it. I do a good deed once a week, completely anonymously. So I don't like film myself on Instagram like, hey, good deed. Like, I don't do that. Like, not saying it's wrong or anything, but I just take a certain amount of money, right, that I have, and I just give it away to someone, whether it's someone who I could think needs it, maybe tipping someone $100 that, they're not expecting that. But I always do a good deed once a week, and I always take a certain portion of some of my revenue that the company makes, and I put it in this give account, and I just give, and I do it once a week. It's actually a habit. It's actually on the calendar right here. I got it done on Monday this week. And besides that, I like to help new investors. So, I remember when I got started out, like, I would ask for people's time and I was scared. And like, now, like, I have a little goal once a week, or at least once a month. Sit down with a new investor for at least 60 minutes and pour your heart into them. And maybe that conversation you have with them will change their business, change your life. Who knows? You can't control their actions, but you can control your activity to help them. So helping new investors out where they have questions, and just giving some money away. I think money is abundant, and you need to have that mindset in order to grow. So between those two things, they keep me busy, and it's definitely been very fulfilling.
Now, and that's a great way to give back. I mean, you're helping and affecting and impacting other people's lives by doing that. But did you say 16 minutes or 60?
No. 60. Yeah.
Okay. I was like
I'm not strategic. No. Sometimes it's more. I don't like. It's got to be at least an hour. I'm like a very numbers guy, so like it's 16.5 minutes, and then click the phone up. No,
that's funny.
16 minutes.
How can the listeners reach you? If somebody's in California and wants to pick your brain about something, maybe take 60 minutes of your time, or, where can they find you online, or where can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I'll give you my social media. And then, that's probably the best way to get in touch with me. My email too. So the number one platform I like is Instagram. So it's Grego, Grego _37. So Grego _37. If you message me, I'll get back to you on that. If you're local in San Diego, feel free to reach out to me. I got an office up in La Jolla. We could go meet there for coffee or whatever. And then if you want to email me, you could email me Greg, Greg, at velocityhousebuyers.com. Once again, that's GREG at velocity, VELOCITY, housebuyers.com. And or if you want to check the podcast out, you can check out Pave the Way podcast on iTunes. There's 2 shows a week. And that's probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Awesome, man. Well, we're going to add all that into the show notes, so listeners will have so many different ways to get in touch with you. And once again, I appreciate you being here today, man. It's great to have you on. I think we should continue this and maybe have you on in a few months again and see where your business is at that point.
I'd love to. I'd love to have you be a guest on my show too, man. I think you could add a ton of value to my listeners.
Let's make it happen, man.
Right on, bro. We'll get it on the calendar.
You have a great day today. We will talk to you real soon, and thanks again for being here.
See ya.
All right, Greg. See you, man.